Welcome to another episode of the Career Musician Podcast. My name is Nomad, and today I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing film composer extraordinaire John Powell, joined by fellow career guitarists Adam Del Monte and Ramon Stagnaro. John brought us in as a guitar trio to do overdubs on the new animated film Ferdinand. In between fiery flamenco takes and passionate Spanish-styled bolero strumming, I was able to sit down and peer into John's world and find out what it's like to be a composer of his stature. We're sitting here with John Powell. We have Ramon Stagnaro and Adam Del Monte. My name is Michael Nomad Rapol. We're here doing a session graciously with John, and thank you so much, John. This is quite amazing. I consider it a musical treat to be around such greatness. All three of you guys, I look up to.
Thank you.
Rio, Shrek, Happy Feet, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Ice Age, The Bourne Ultimatum, How to Train Your Dragon. The list literally goes on and on. Check out John's IMDb page. I was asking you, John, your process, and you said being in the idiom, you try to stay true to a sense, the authenticity, and you kind of get a broad picture, and then you go back and edit later, perhaps in this instance where we have a guitar trio, right? Is that...
Well, today's process is looking through all the guitar stuff in the movie and trying to figure out what's going to be the best way of doing it. And while we're at it, we're doing some bits that are definitely going to work with three guitars. I think idiom is always hard with instruments you're not really virtuosic at. I mean, I know roughly what things should sound like. So, we were just talking about these are great piece of software that stops you from playing things badly on a guitar.
Yeah, well, take away your concern with that software, that two notes on the same string. On the guitar, you can, there's quartaturas, you can detune the guitar in different ways, which in certain tunings may actually enable the thing you actually came up with.
That's
so
true.
you really should be more concerned with the timbre of the instrument rather than what's...
I probably do exactly that. I find these sample guitars to be great when you're sitting there looking for the resonance of the chords, the harmonies, and the exact voicing is sometimes something that you might not be able to do on a guitar, but it is one of those
on
things.
a standard tuning guitar.
Yeah,
Right,
it's true. I mean, just that's why it's been interesting with three. We can experiment across three guitars.
Right.
The thing is, the only thing is I haven't done the arrangements really for three guitars, so that's what today's about. It's just playing really with what could work, what might not work. And then some of this I'll go back and we might rewrite out and we'll figure out a better way of doing.
Because you said that today at the beginning of the session that you were experimenting with how to even track the parts in general.
Yeah.
That's why you called three.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I mean, I've also got George Deering coming tomorrow to do certain other things.
Right.
I'll try different things. Some of these melody parts might be easier to do in other ways. Some I might actually bring each of you back on individual sessions, to do things in a different way. So that trying to find the right character for the parts. It's sometimes about casting. Having the right musicians is about casting, I think.
I was just going to say, it's really casting. You're casting for the...
There's things that you all do differently as musicians and as players, and the sounds you make and the way you play things. You're all unique. And so it's been interesting looking through today the stuff, just seeing what each of you really can bring to life on it in certain ways. And it's different. It's not a pure flamenco. There's no pure flamenco in the film. I mean, I wish there could be sometimes, but we might get a bit more of it in if I do a session with you. There might be, more of a sort of a hybrid thing, with flamenco music that you've been messing around with, and you have a sort of a Latin feel that is not that crosses the boundaries of what we think of as, Spanish influenced music. It's the fact you're from Peru. We're all immigrants who mess with everybody else's music.
Right.
That's right. Yeah,
Mess with everybody else.
Nobody here is actually authentically doing what the music is supposed to be about. None of us are Spanish.
Which makes it perfect for what this really is.
Exactly.
It's a combo, yeah.
Well, it was like when I got hired on Rio. I said to Carlos, why as a Brazilian director with a Brazilian music director, Sergio Mendes, are you getting an English guy to come in and score the movie? Right. He said, with all these Brazilians, he said, we need one person who doesn't know anything about Brazilian music to make the bridge.
Mess it up.
Well,
in a good way.
To make the bridges for everybody else, because the rest of the world is going to listen to it, and they don't know anything about. So if we use you as a filter, so I was kind of a filter for that film.
Yeah, to get the flavor of Brazil, but have it to adjust the spectrum.
Yeah, because it's on certain sessions they were, the guys were getting really real complex harmonically and rhythmically and things. And it's beautiful stuff, but
that's very
how do you respond?
How do you respond? You go, guys, you've gone into territory that the rest of us will never understand. So I'm gonna wave my yellow card. And I'm gonna say, I'm sorry, but we're gonna pull it back. We're gonna pull it back from the edge here.
Yeah. I've been fortunate to work on several film scores with John. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Happy Feet 1 and 2, P.S. I Love You, and a handful more. And I must say, working with John truly is a delightful experience. From the time you walk in, he makes you feel at home, and he appreciates what you're bringing to the table as a career musician. But in essence, that you have to steer the bus. You are the composer. You're with the director and the producers constantly, so you understand the vision, and you have to steer it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is I have only one responsibility, and that's to the film.
Right.
So I do everything I can to make it work for the film. If it doesn't work for the film,
it's not a constant.
What's my job?
It's not a performance.
Yeah, it isn't.
It has to serve a larger purpose.
Yeah, it's a collaborative.
That's how new things, come to out because. Trying to stay away from what is done already, too traditional.
Yeah, the tradition. Yeah.
And I like that. I love it, because music's supposed to be
break it. Yeah.
I've always loved my own ignorance. Because your ignorance brings you to conclusions that
imagination over knowledge.
Yeah.
That's it. I always say, like songwriters, all three of us are guitarists, all four of us really. I mean, I know you play some too, John, but
viola player.
As a guitarist, you ever get called in and the producer says, "Oh, I need you to recreate the guitar part that the songwriter or the artist played." And I say, "Wait a minute, now it depends on the level, because sometimes the songwriter, who can also be the artist, they have this such unique, uninformed approach that it's almost impossible to recreate in a convincible way, right?" So then I've done that several times where I tell the producer, "Look, buddy, you're better off having the artist do it because it's going to be pure from that perspective." And I think that's where the ignorance of what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Or the demo.
Or even the demo.
I like you to play like the demo.
Yeah.
And he was a kid, he has 2-3 years playing the guitar. And he has a unique approach.
And then you hear
and you cannot reproduce it. And you're right on that. It's like...
Yeah. The first session I ever did in Los Angeles was a jingle, and and they gave me an orchestra, and they gave me all this kind of stuff, and I did a guitar part for it, which was like a fast, heavy kind of thrash metal thing. Yeah. I did it with a guitar plugged directly into, I guess, the mic on an O2R, a Yamaha digital desk.
God.
And I just cranked up the gain.
Yeah, and you got...
And I got this weird, shitty kind of distortion that was all I could do that day when I needed it. Yeah. The guitar. And then when we came to do the final, I'd recorded the orchestra and recorded all this, and I had to do the guitar again. And so we had one of, LA's finest guys, and it's my first experience of an LA session musician whose truck arrived with his gear.
Oh my God!
Yeah, yeah, and the cartage was just everywhere. It was like 100 guitars and amps and everything that you could possibly use. And he set up everything, and we started to play. No, and in the end, I just used the O2R thing. There's a great difference between sort of. It's like It's like the difference between punk and, the cocaine making you think you sound really good. It didn't have that boinkiness, I guess.
Yeah.
Was,
Well, that was a quirky thing. Again, it was an uninformed approach, and it worked.
Yeah, being
pure character.
Yeah, being quirky is actually very hard to achieve. You sort of trip over it. I think.
You are.
Right, because it could be contrived if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Honestly. And that's what it was sounding like. I was like trying to get back to effectively what I'd done, and I was thinking, what the fuck am I doing?
Right. Quirks and all, it's part of who we are as musicians. But just as John mentioned, it is his responsibility to manifest the filmmaker's musical vision, and it's the session musician's responsibility to help the composer facilitate that. So John, you started at an early age over in England, and then you came here. You were telling us a little bit about your story.
Well, I'm an economic migrant like all of us.
Okay.
Yeah, so not enough work in England, so
right.
I came here.
Yeah, like we all did.
Sure. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I was a kid who played the violin and then the viola, and then, just did jingles and TV and stuff in London, and then decided that, I couldn't get any further up the rung. It didn't feel as if I could get any further up the rung.
Right.
Yeah. So I met Hans. But I met Hans there, and he said, "Oh, come over. We've got more work than we can handle." So I came over.
So he told you to come over here to LA.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't for a year.
Okay.
I didn't. I knew I wasn't ready, so I spent a year kind of getting ready, and then I came over. And I walked in the door and I went, "Hi, I'm here." And he went, "Who the fuck are you?"
Did you study anywhere or by yourself?
I studied classical music from the
Was it Royal College, Guildhall?
Trinity College of Music. Yeah,
Cambridge.
And no, it's part of London University, and it was perfect for me because they had an electronic studio. The other studios didn't. The other colleges didn't. They also, my teacher was really into film, so he sent me to the International Film School as well. We would go there and do the student films, do the students' directors' films. I also went to the choreography department of, which one was it? Central School of Dance, and did pieces with the choreographers.
Wow.
And they were much more open, really, I think. So I squeezed the college. I squeezed the resources out of the college. I squeezed everybody's energies out of all the other students who were interested. And it's funny, all the people that you play with at college, when you're a composer, the people who are willing to play, they all went on to be session musicians, and they all went on to be, experts in contemporary music and things, or do pop sessions. There were, you could tell even at that point, the people who were really interested in just collaborating with, they had a brain sort of quirk that made them even interested in doing all this stuff for free when you're a student.
A like-minded drive,
But yeah, they were interested in helping anybody who had ideas.
Right.
They weren't just interested in sitting down and playing the standard rep.
Because like I always say, we didn't get into the business to make money. We got into the business because we fell in love with music.
Love it, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that comes first.
Now it comes a crucial question.
Yeah.
That some of the film composers, some of them they answer, some of them they refuse to. Do you copy yourself? Do you have your leaks and all that?
I have. Do I copy myself in the sense that
things that you did in the past?
God, yeah, you can't help it. It's what I call fetishes. I call it musical fetishes. So when you're writing, what happens is you're trying to write something that you're thinking, okay, I want to try and achieve this. And what you can't help is all the history of every kind of music you've ever heard and really loved is in there, and it's poking at you all the time. So every time you do it, it doesn't matter, you're going, okay, I want to make it sound like Mahler. So you're writing for Mahler, and then I won't understand why, but for some reason or other, I've got some Esquivel trumpets in there. That's a bit obscure for some people, but it's like
that's perfect.
It's just the use of bass clarinet and two clarinets in On the Town, the overture of On the Town. I don't know why, but it will always be with me. So that's the only time I ever use a bass clarinet. Don't like bass clarinets unless they're in harmony with the other two, and then they're working that way. So I'll always try and do that, and I do it completely unconsciously.
Right.
So what happens is that then you start doing more and more films, and then you start sounding always like the same shit all the time.
Yeah, but that's your imprint.
That's your
That's your
style,
thumbprint.
yeah.
That's
But it's
you.
these fetishes.
Yeah.
It's these fetishes. I just happen to like this. I heard this music when I was 16, and it's all there, and you can't get rid of it, and it pops up. And eventually, I just, well, fuck it. I guess that's
Embrace it.
me. Yeah.
It's like if you
Yeah,
sometimes
same, I mean,
Jimi Hendrix and George Benson, I fuse the way they do the pockets.
Absolutely.
You know, it looks at it, but you can't get away from it. But I know that's part of what I sound like. You know, right? And then even like let's take it a step further with the flamenco. I mean, everybody has a different rasguero technique. That if you say play rasguero, you know, it just sounds different, right? You listen to Tomatito, you listen to Vicente Amigo, you listen to Paco. I have all these different. So whatever your fetish is.
Even there's I mean, just rasguero, there's just different techniques. There's a flicked, there's a thrown, there's 3-finger, 2-finger. This one, that one. I mean, there's all these different colors.
Right.
You know.
And so probably each person who you're mentioning at some point in their childhood, they were probably somewhere, and the moment they saw something that touched them in this kind of way that it scars you inside in this wonderful way.
That's the
and
one thing you do above all else.
Yeah, it'll never leave you, and that will always be that fetish, that musical fetish. And so, and the great thing, I think most creative people have also terrible memory. So I always think, if you add this musical fetish, bad memory, so you're trying to sound like Bernstein, and you're missing by a long way, but it ends up like you.
Thing.
Because now it's personalized.
Yeah. Now you can't help yourself, so you fuck it up, and it comes out sounding like you every time. But it doesn't matter. There's still it comes from the same well every time.
It's brilliant.
And that's what every composer is doing. Every composer is channeling every other composer they've ever heard in their lives.
Yeah. It's all in the unconscious. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, it really is true.
What's the creative equivalent of regurgitation? I mean,
reincarnation.
Yes,
perhaps.
Reincarnation is probably better.
Creative reincarnation.
Yeah, but just you're mixing up. So you've got Marilyn Monroe's body on top of, Ernest Hemingway's legs. It doesn't matter because you mix it up because you can't help it.
Yeah.
But you always remember her face and his knees for some reason. I don't know why.
That was interesting illustration. It's
that
cool,
was a
though.
terrible, terrible way. I walked right down that one.
That is way cool.
As a career musician, versatility is key. Remember, every genre has its own soul along with its own set of nuances, and channeling is part of the process which brings us new possibilities. I challenge you to explore some new styles that you might not have been into before.
And then, hey, last question about your team. You've amassed quite a team, and you have a well-oiled machine, and your work process, obviously it starts with you. Do you start on piano? Do you start in your brain? Do you start on Logic? Yes, all the above.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything. I mean, I start with playlists.
You do?
Yeah, start listening to things. I make playlists of ideas.
Excellent.
I fiddle around at a piano 3 films beforehand, simply not realizing that this is the thing I will need on that film 3 films later.
That's awesome.
But I might be thinking about it, or other things will come out. Or some of the best stuff comes out 20 minutes before everybody walks in. All the filmmakers walk in to listen to stuff.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's just that pressure.
Being under pressure.
Yeah. It's like they're coming at 9 o'clock in the morning. At 8:20, you have nothing. Nothing.
And then all.
It's so familiar.
Oh man.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, and then
Suddenly.
what you're doing essentially, I suppose, is making a decision. And you've been thinking about it, and you've been procrastinating, but you've been thinking about it, and suddenly you make a decision. Right, I'm going to do this because I have no choice now. And lo and behold, the good stuff comes out quite often.
Wow.
It's a bit nerve-wracking.
Great stuff. When I hear it, it's like
brilliant.
Spain is this marvel, but it's not really Spain. I mean, what we think of as Spanish music obviously does become what we think of as Latin music. And a lot of it, the music I love was by Russians who visited Spain, and by the French who visited Spain. And,
wow.
Between Rimsky-Korsakov and Ravel and who's a Dumas, some amazing stuff. There's all those guys, and then of course there's Defire. I think is just absolutely amazing.
Wow. I have a theory about why classical music. Why Spain has less, classical composers like Germans, British,
That's
Russian.
true.
And here's my theory. Spanish folklore, and especially flamenco, is so much richer than any other folklore in the other countries. That there is not such a need to feed to spiritually feed the soul of the people with great composers, because their folk music is so rich and complex.
Well, like Brazilians too. They don't play any other thing.
Exactly.
By Brazil.
Right.
Would this be true to say of all of the Latin influenced then cultures, because it's such
I'm
an
just speaking.
amalgam? Or you're
I'm
strictly speaking of Spain.
Of Europe. I'm
Of
speaking of
European
Europe.
Spain.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't. I mean,
Yeah,
the
gotcha,
Latin
gotcha.
thing is already the next level of
Okay,
of
okay.
fusion of humanity and
Okay,
cultures. It's
okay.
much
Right,
bigger.
right.
But just
No, you're right.
You know?
I think you're right, because a lot of the great music that came out of these other European countries was
their folk music is awful.
yeah,
I mean, look at
it's
Germany.
really, yeah,
I
absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
come on.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
they needed a Bach. They thirsted for,
Yeah.
for a
That's
Bach
right, yeah.
and a Beethoven.
And the lyricism and the passion.
You know?
and-
Yeah, exactly. So, and also, but it's also about economies. You have to forget. We always forget Spain was an absolutely devastated economy. Really.
After
then,
1492.
Yeah, well, until
yeah.
what? Until the 70s. I mean, until the 1970s. That was
1970s, yeah.
that was part of Europe that was so economically depressed that they didn't have. They really did. Oh, yeah, sure, they had an overclass, but a tiny one compared with, there was none of this kind of middle class wealth really until very late in the 20th century, and so you don't have people sitting around who are comfortable with nothing else to do but think up music. Germany was a powerhouse. Even in the 15th century, 16th century. Same with England. All of these places had such good economies that you did end up with people who didn't have to struggle to survive.
Right.
When you
afford
have
to be musicians.
Yeah. And so the only music that can be made in a situation like that is folk music, and Spain absolutely, really, you're right. It came up with, and the amalgam that is flamenco.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
all
rich-
these
yeah.
parts of the world.
Arabic,
It's-
Jewish, Gypsy,
Yeah.
Andalusian, Byzantine, Greek. I mean,
Yeah.
you name it.
Yeah.
It's
The
all
rabbit,
in
you
there.
can go down
Even
this rabbit hole, huh?
Yeah, there's some amazing Galician stuff I've heard. Some of the folk music in other parts of that we were saying, if we can find the horror. This is reference to a piece of there's a piece of what is undoubtedly Jewish music in the.
Fire dance?
We're trying to work out what the fire dance was,
been, yeah.
because I've got a horror in this that really can only be described as a horror, but all of this music in Spain is just so deep and grand in its own way. I agree. It's like, and it's all music of absolute poverty. I mean, that's
and it's endless. I mean, the melody is just bloody endless,
Absolutely.
and the nuances, the attention to nuances, and the melismatic quality of everything, and the things that for them is a big difference from one to the other.
Yeah.
To us, to Western, trained musicians, it sounds sort of the same, but for them, it's a big deal.
Yes.
Because it's got that Middle Eastern quality to it.
It's the difference between a shuffle and a 12-bar blues. I mean, probably, in certain cultures, people wouldn't know the difference.
That's right.
really.
Subtle, but we can hear it.
You all sound white to me.
Chanka, chanka,
so-
chanka.
So if you had a choice, purist, one thing your whole life, or an amalgam, you get to do a little bit of everything. All of us as professional musicians.
I have always been trying to come to terms with a thing my father said to me, which is, he was a professional musician, and he said to me, don't jack of all trades and master of none. And it's exactly what I have done.
I feel
I've
the
been
same
a jack
way.
of all and I love it.
So what do we do? Is it okay? Because I feel like
absolutely okay.
I
Because
broke the rules a little bit. Is it all right?
No, because what you do is you're becoming a master of all the trades. But you're not. You're becoming a master of the amalgamation. Not of individual things. You're becoming a master of the ability to be able to take it all in and do what the hell you like with it. And sure, it's a little bit of knowledge and lots of things, but that's how invention comes.
You just gave me a piece. I'm glad that we all agree about that, because boy, I was internally, torn over years, because especially now that I'm getting older. So I'm thinking, well, if I would have just focused on one thing, would I have been more successful in that one thing, or more powerful in that one? You know what I mean? More profound.
No, it's just you've got to come to terms with the fact that you like to watch some shit, and
you're just gonna
do lots of it up. Yeah, and that's what will give you your strength.
I love it.
Same thing like a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and I wish the thing.
I love that conclusion. Crazy good. Thank you guys so much. You're so gracious. Appreciate it. Idiom, authenticity, experimentation, casting, unique voice, hybrid, purist versus jack of all trades, master of versatility, gumbo, economic migrant, bridging the gap, unorthodox, nuances, quirkiness, the love of music, musical fetish, channeling, amalgamations, folklore, and finally, inner peace. These are all focus points that we have collected from this interview with John and the rest of the gang. I am personally grateful to everyone for helping this podcast become an educational source. And remember, for all of you aspiring career musicians out there, keep the faith, be perseverant, persistent, and diligent. My word for 2018 is consistency. Whether you practice for 5 minutes or 5 hours, make that time count. This is Nomad signing off for another episode of the Career Musician Podcast. Stay tuned for many more to come.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please write a review on iTunes. Follow Nomad's Place on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Check out nomadsplace.com for more info.
I'm just a nomad, nowhere man, writing the songs in this one-man band. A nomad, yeah, I'm a nomad. Drummers! So you're watching an amazing drummer on YouTube, and they're playing something so crazy you just can't figure it out. If only you can tap this drummer on the shoulder and say, hey, can you slow it down and break it down for me, man? PossibleChops.com does exactly that. They've asked some of the top-of-the-line drummers to play in short, digestible phrases some of their craziest chops. Then they slow it down and transcribe it so you can actually learn what the heck they're doing. They're making chops possible. Now, PossibleChops.com is an online drum lesson website that makes it easy to add to your drumming vocabulary from some of the baddest professional drummers. And when I say baddest, I mean the dopest, illest, most ridiculousest drummers you ever heard. Imagine getting a breakdown from drummers who played with the likes of Usher, Earth, Wind & Fire, Chick Corea, Babyface, Sheryl Crow, Tony Braxton, and the list goes on. The PossibleChops.com community is designed to allow drummers to share ideas and help you on your path to becoming a pro and getting gigs. That's right, folks, actually getting real gigs. If you're serious about drumming, do yourself a favor and visit PossibleChops.com. Join today, and basic membership is free. However, if you decide to upgrade to a pro membership, use the promo code NOMAD to get your first free month. That's right, folks. Use coupon code NOMAD and you get the whole first month absolutely free. Adding new chops are now made possible for drummers on PossibleChops.com.